Hey, what's up guys? I am back in Cebu City and I'm gonna be here for a little bit before I take off on a little motorbike adventure. And for this video guys, I am going to give you a thorough breakdown of the pros and the cons of living in a place like Cebu City. I have spent a ton of time in the city from the very beginning. This is where it all started. What's going on here? Let's take a little pause. If that doesn't tell you all about the vibe here in Cebu City, I don't know what does. It's a good time here in the city. All right, guys, let's get started, starting with the pros of living in Cebu City. So one of the main draws for living here, for most guys, it's the condo living with the amenities that come with that. So modern high-rise condos, typically here, they're gonna come with a pool, a fitness center, they have security. And just for reference, guys, there's three main bubbles in Cebu. Well, one of them is actually in Lapu-Lapu. So you have IT Park, you have Cebu Business Park, which is popular for Ayala Mall, and then you have Mactan Newtown. Now, there is a ton of growing going on. So there's new condos, restaurants, malls that are nice and new that are outside of those bubbles. So it's expanding. Like Cebu City is growing so fast. And the benefits of living in these areas, well, particularly these three areas that are very developed, is you have convenience, guys. It's easy. It's everything at your fingertips. And everything is nice. Like it's laid out nice, it's landscaped. And most foreigners tend to flock to these areas. They're comfortable here. It's a main draw to living in Cebu City. And just to contrast that to living in a smaller town or small city, or of course in the province, you're gonna start to lose out on these opportunities. Also, when it comes to shopping, like when I was in Dumaguete, there's only some things that you can get there. A lot of stuff is in Cebu or Manila, or you order it online. But if you wanna have more options and you wanna be able to just get what you want when you want it, it's another benefit of living in a place like Cebu City. There's just everything here. On top of that, in Cebu City, you have all the healthcare options. It's the second biggest city in the Philippines. You have access to one of the most highly regarded hospitals in the Philippines in Changhua. And I have a friend that actually spent a lot of time there and he speaks very highly of it. So you have everything from small clinics to big hospitals and plenty of options to choose from. I think that's a really valid reason to choose to live in a place like Cebu City, to have your quick, easy access and your options when it comes to your healthcare. For those of you who have spent time in Manila and also Cebu, most people will say the vibe in Cebu City is way more laid back. It's way more chill. People are more approachable. People are more friendly. There's also a little bit more of a foreigner factor in terms of you being a foreigner and you being kind of different, kind of cool, more interest in you. Where in Manila, you don't really get that. You're not going to get too many people caring that you're a foreigner. Not that they're mean about it, but to compare the two, most would say they like that. They like Cebu because that's one of the things that makes them feel so welcome there. This is just one little example to compare Manila and Cebu, but like the taxi drivers, there's a good chance if you've spent enough time in Manila, you have experienced a taxi driver on more than one occasion trying to rip you off, trying to double charge you, triple charge you. They don't want to use the meter. And sometimes they just don't have like a friendly type of vibe. They're really just trying to hustle you for money. Where in Cebu City, that rarely happens. It's 9 times out of 10, they're gonna use the meter and they're probably gonna ask you where you're from. And they're gonna wanna know your backstory and chat with you during the drive. It's way more frequent that they're gonna be friendly. And even though that's a small comparison, and it doesn't paint the whole picture, of course, there's good and bad everywhere, but it does represent a bit of the difference between the two cities. Cebu City, friendly vibe, laid back vibe, and that's one of the main reasons a lot of foreigners do prefer Cebu City over Manila. Speaking of foreigners in Cebu City, this is another huge perk, a huge pro of living in Cebu City. I think it is so important for guys that come here to find a network of friends, especially when you're new here. Like when I first moved to the Philippines, I met this one guy, this Australian guy, and I had traveled off early on and I was in a remote island and I could not access any money. And I reached out to him. I didn't even know him that well. And he had transferred me some money so I could pay for my hotel, so I could have cash for food, to get me through the rest of this trip until I could come back to a place where I can get some cash and of course pay him back. But having that one friend like saved me at a time where I was kind of screwed. Like I had no options. So having a network is good for things like that. But of course, it's also good just for quality of life, just having friends to do things with. If you're new here, having people to chat with about different ideas of what to do and where to go. Cebu City, I think it's a fantastic place to do that because it is the perfect soft landing for a lot of guys to start here in Cebu City. It's a comfortable place because of the reasons that I talked about, the good vibe. And because there are so many new faces here, people that are looking to make friends, people that are looking for ideas and they're looking to network, it just lends itself as a place where you can connect with people. And just to add to this point, I think a place like Cebu City is way more ideal for a single guy. So if you're single and you're looking to move somewhere and start that process of meeting someone, there's no comparison of Cebu City and a place like Dumaguete. I think the region of Dumaguete is fantastic for a married couple or, a couple in a serious relationship. You want to find a nice home. You want to build a home. You want to have that laid back lifestyle. It's phenomenal for that. But for those guys that are not there yet and you want to just make some friends and you want to date and you want to meet someone, there's no comparison. Cebu City is a much better option. So speaking of dating, it goes without saying that is a definite pro of living in Cebu City. It's a massive dating pool. There are Filipinas here from all over the Philippines. Some are from the city and many are not. Many are from the province and they come here for a variety of reasons. They could have come here to go to school. They might be working here. They have family here. There is a huge variety of Filipinas to meet here. One reason I think it's a great dating city compared to other areas of the Philippines is because there is a bit of a dating culture here. So let's just say there's a Filipina that grew up in the province, very shy, very traditional. Whether she's younger or she's been there for a while and she's not young anymore, there's still going to be a completely different vibe. And there could be some barriers to really connecting with a girl like that. But a girl that comes to Cebu City and gets exposed to some different things and maybe has a friend or two that also has a foreigner boyfriend, it starts to open up people's minds into the idea of dating a foreigner and some of those fears and things that would keep a Filipina from being comfortable with the idea or would slow the whole process down. It all changes after spending a little bit of time in Cebu City. So that alone, I think, is a big reason why it is a great place to date. Of course, with that said, there's also a lot of room for barriers and pitfalls and Filipinas that are very exposed to dating here. And they know some of the benefits of being with a foreigner, for financial gain. And that also spreads here. Point is, Cebu City is a huge pool for dating. Some of it very bad, some of it fantastic. And it's really up to you. Like for any part of the Philippines that you go to, it's up to you to really figure it out, figure out how to avoid the pitfalls. And once you figure that out, you'll realize that Cebu City is a fantastic place to meet someone. Another quick point to make, the Filipinas that are here that are very active and very, let's say, hungry to meet a foreigner, and they're on all the dating apps. Those sometimes are girls that you want to avoid. And the Filipina that is working at the hotel or at a restaurant or doing other things, and they're not even on a dating app, and they might not even be looking or thinking too much about dating a foreigner, those tend to be the girls that make better girlfriends and are way less risky than the girl that is on Tinder showing her bikini body in every photo. So maybe that's obvious, but when guys come here, that's usually what they see first. That's who they get the attention from. That's who they date right away. I wanted to mention that just to clarify, because I am saying that that is a huge pro for living in Cebu City, only if you avoid that crap that also exists here in Cebu City. This next one actually just came up in conversation recently with a friend of mine who just signed up for a class on how to be a better stage performer. He's a singer and he wants to do more of it. He is living here in the Philippines, and he said it's such a great benefit of living in a place like Cebu City to have access to things like that, things that big cities offer. There are cooking classes that you can do here, music, art classes, dance studios. There's a ton of stuff like that. That is one of the many perks of living in a bigger city like Cebu. All right, I can't talk about pros of living in Cebu City without mentioning the weather. This region of the Philippines, it's just better weather here. Less typhoons, more mild weather. less rain. I've been here for about 2.5 years now, and I have to say the weather is never an issue for me. It's not at all. But when you see what's happening around the Philippines, there will be typhoons up in Luzon, Leyte, Samar, down in Siargao, anything close to the Pacific. It just seems to be a little bit more protected over here. Negros and the Dumaguete area is the same thing. Less typhoons, less earthquakes, less landslides. Those are issues for other parts of the Philippines. It's not a huge issue if you live in Cebu City. All right, last thing to mention here is how amazing the location is when it comes to escaping the city, hopping on a flight, heading to another part of the Philippines, going after that tropical beach destination, any vacation trip. And of course, it's an international airport, so escaping the Philippines altogether to other areas in the region. And then of course, there's a ferry port that goes to a number of different islands straight out of Cebu City. And just to give you some perspective, you don't have to go far at all. So you have Camotes Island, you have Bantayan Island in Cebu, you have the southern part of Cebu Island, which has all the waterfalls, tons of adventure stuff, the canyoneering. You can ferry over to Panglao Bohol, white sandy beaches. You can ferry down to Siquijor, which is an amazing getaway spot. 25-minute flight over to Camigan Island, one of my favorite islands in the Philippines. It is so centrally located, so if you want to escape the city feel and get onto that beach, it's nothing to do so. And if you're really craving a beach, you can go to Mactan Island. There is a number of resorts. You can pay like a day rate and have access to their pool, to their beaches. It's not the mind-blowing beaches that you have in other parts of the Philippines, but for a quick day trip to get your fix, it's right there for the taking. All right, guys, let's get into the cons of living in Cebu City. There are some cons. This is not going to be the right fit for everyone, or at least you should just be aware of some of these things before you make your decision to come and move here to Cebu. So right off the bat, traffic. Guys, traffic is bad here. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's not great. It is definitely chaotic. When you get outside of those bubbles that I was talking about, it's even more chaotic because the traffic is mixed in with not so great infrastructure in some parts of the city. And so if you're out in those areas, you're going to have to share that area with like old jeepneys that are pumping out exhaust, and the sidewalks are beat up and it's crowded feeling, where if you are in the bubbles, there is still traffic, but it's a little more organized, and at least you have the infrastructure and it just doesn't feel as chaotic. But overall, guys, heavy traffic, congested. If you have to head to the airport, for example, plan accordingly. Whenever you have to commute across town in Cebu City and you're grabbing a taxi, just anticipate some gridlock, especially around the busy rush hour times of the city. Next thing, housing limitations. You are pretty much limited to that condo living that I was mentioning. And the downside to condo living is a lot of these places that's in the budget for a lot of foreigners, they are little tiny studios. They're very small. And so it's not ideal in many ways when you're stuck in a small space like that. You have the amenities. You can walk out your door, and that's sort of the benefit of it, is you don't have to spend all your time in that tiny little studio. You can just go out and everything's at your fingertips, and you can enjoy some nice spaces to hang out around the city. Now, if it is in your budget, then getting a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or just one of the buildings that have more square footage, it makes all the difference in the world. I've been in some of those units. It's so much nicer to have a little more space. So keep this in mind, guys. This is definitely one of the downsides. You're not going to find a single family home in Cebu City. It's not going to happen. It's all condo living. All right, as I just mentioned with the infrastructure, when you get out of these bubbles, it is chaotic. A lot of guys that come here, they don't even want to bother with that part of Cebu City, even though it's expanding and there's new stuff popping up and mixed in with this sort of old undeveloped part of the city. And so most guys end up just staying in the bubbles, staying around Ayala Mall, staying in IT Park. And guys, it gets boring in the city if that's all you do is hang out at the mall and go to the same coffee shop and do the same thing. That repetition drives a lot of guys crazy, and that can happen pretty easily when you want to stay in your comfort zone in Cebu City. It takes effort, it takes some exploring to get out of those bubbles, to find the other spots, to go up the mountain sometimes, go up to Tops, go up to, one of those nice restaurants, just mix it up. There's a market, the carbon market, the farmer's market. There's things you can do outside of the bubbles, but many guys don't bother with it. And then that repetition, the monotony, and that boring lifestyle starts to kick in, which ends up making that a downside of living in Cebu City that a lot of people complain about. And to be honest with you guys, some of my favorite places and some of the best experiences that I've had are outside of those areas. So this one's a little bit up to you. Maybe getting out of your comfort zone isn't your thing. So just be aware that it could start to feel a bit boring. Cebu City is not a small city, but as far as the very developed part of the cities, comparing it to Manila, if you like the bubble and you want nice, you go to Manila, you're gonna have way more. BGC is a much bigger area. Then you have Makati right next to it, and you have other areas of Manila that are very developed, and you don't have to bother with some of those underdeveloped areas so quickly, where if you're walking through IT Park or Cebu Business Park, it doesn't take too long before you've reached the perimeter and now you're kind of venturing off into the less developed part of the city. So, okay, this is a biggie for me. This has always come into play with my desire to spend more time in like the Dumaguete, Valencia area over Cebu City, even though Cebu City is always my other home base, is I love the nature getaways. And I love to be able to do that within a day. Like I want to hop on my motorbike and have that freedom to ride up, check out a waterfall, ride down to a snorkeling spot, just enjoy some peace, some nature, and then come right back the same day. That is not as much of an option here in Cebu City. Definitely not on the same level as a place like Dumaguete whatsoever. The traffic limits how far you can go and how quickly you can get there. Cebu Island has amazing nature stuff, but you're just not going to get there quick. It's not a day trip for the majority of the amazing nature spots that are on this island. You need at least a weekend getaway, oftentimes a few days, to go and really appreciate some of these awesome nature spots in Cebu. So what it comes down to, guys, is you have to embrace the city. You have to take advantage of the unique opportunities that only a city of this size in the Philippines can offer. And when you've had enough of the city life, take a trip. Take advantage of the fact that you can hop on a plane or hop on a ferry, and because of the location, you can quickly be in some of the most amazing places in the Philippines. And that is definitely one of the big perks of living in Cebu City. All right, guys, to wrap this up, at the end of the day, I honestly think Cebu City will be the perfect home base for a lot of you guys. And at a minimum, because I know not everyone wants to be in a city, I think it's a perfect starting point for a soft landing, to get your feet under you, and then branch out from Cebu to start exploring other parts of the Philippines. So look into it, check it out. I appreciate you watching this video. I hope it helped. And thanks as always for following along my journey in the Philippines. Appreciate it. Many more videos to come. See you guys soon.